The most royal candidate theory is the proposition that the winning candidate in United States presidential elections will be the candidate with the greatest percentage of royal blood in his or her pedigree. The theory was first publicized by Harold Brooks Baker, who promoted it during several election cycles, ending with the United States presidential election, 2004. History. Every 4 years for a number of election cycles, Harold Brooks Baker publicized his theory during the presidential election campaign, touring the talk circuit and expounding upon it. He gave examples of presidents whose losing opponents did not have royal blood, Ronald Reagan vs. Walter Mondale, or where the winner simply had more royalty, John F. Kennedy vs. Richard Nixon. Based on his theory, Brooks Baker predicted that John Kerry would defeat the incumbent president, George W. Bush, in the United States presidential election, 2004, because while the candidates shared a number of royal bloodlines, Kerry had more royal ancestors than Bush. However, Bush was re-elected, and Brooks Baker died a few months later. The theory received fresh interest in 2012, when Bridget Davignon, a 12-year-old schoolgirl from California, claimed to have traced the ancestors of all except one of the 43 presidents back to John, King of England, 1166 to 1216, reigned 1199 to 1216. According to Davignon, every president from George Washington to Barack Obama is a descendant of King John, with the sole exception of Martin Van Buren. Criticism. Critics of the theory point out that perhaps a third of all Americans may be descended from King John, and that the odds of being distantly related to other royalty are even higher. This is an effect of a phenomenon known as Pedigree Collapse, which occurs due to the doubling of the number of a person's ancestors with each generation. In theory, each person has over 1,000 ancestors after 10 generations, and 1 million after 20, far exceeding the number of persons actually living in most regions at any point in time. In fact, most people are descended from the same ancestors multiple times through different lines, while anyone living at the time of King John could have tens of millions of descendants in the present day. Proponents of the theory may counter by noting that, even if 1/3 of all Americans are descended from King John, 2/3 are not. Therefore one would not expect most presidents to count him among their ancestors. However, the leading candidates for president in each election cycle do not represent a random sampling of the American population. Nearly all of the presidents and their opponents have had English ancestors, greatly increasing the likelihood of their descent from King John or other British monarchs. There remains a factual question as to whether the number of each candidate's royal ancestors or percentage of royal blood can be accurately estimated without being able to trace every branch of the candidate's family tree for an indefinite length. However, the relevance of such descent is also questioned due to the relatively small degree of inheritance a person receives from such distant ancestors. For instance, a person 10 generations removed from a royal ancestor would have less than 1,000th of that ancestor's DNA, and this amount would be halved with each subsequent generation. Thus, even if being a 27th generation descendant of King John could confer some advantage on a presidential contender, it is unclear how it would have any measurable effect. The central claim, that until 2004 the winner was always the most royal, is called into question by 4 instances in which successive elections were contested by the same 2 candidates, with different results. In United States presidential election, 1800, United States presidential election, 1828, United States presidential election, 1840 and United States presidential election, 1892, the victorious candidate had lost to the same opponent in the previous election.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.